Coming up on The Solo Show.
So you got the podcast, you got the classroom, and now all of a sudden you decide, I'm going to write a book about being a fan of Disney. What was your inspiration?
First, I wanted to be back on the show for the fourth time, so that was kind of the reason to do it. But beyond that, this has been something I have been thinking about for a few years.
Mm-hmm. Stan welcomes Cody Havard from the Being a Fan of Disney podcast to the Solo Studios for a near-record fourth visit. They're going to talk about Cody's new book, Being a Fan of Disney, the book. Stick around for a discussion of this new book, plus a whole lot more, and of course, lots of laughs. The Solo Show, as always, is brought to you by Victor Naraki Realtor, serving Disney and the greater Orlando area with celebratingflorida.com and disneyatyourdoorstep.com. Realtor Victor Naraki makes living near Walt Disney World a reality, specializing in all the communities surrounding Disney. Whether you're looking to relocate or invest in a new property, maybe you want a vacation home for your retirement. With over a decade of experience in the area, Victor will adapt to your needs, help you find the right property, or get you the best price for your property. Reach out to him today on his website, celebratingflorida.com, or at disneyatyourdoorstep.com. Follow him at Victor Naraki Realtor on Facebook, and don't forget to tell him that the Solo Show sent you.
Well, hello and welcome. I'm Chester Snobbottom here with another book review on...
Just kidding.
Hey everybody, it's Paul Sun-Hyung Lee, and you are listening to The Solo Show, so stay tuned.
Broadcasting from the Solo Studios, located in the back seat of the Lightning McQueen simulator at Sunset Showcase, here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, the center of North America, on this little planet we call Earth. This is The Solo Show. On this adventure, Stan welcomes Cody Havard from the Being a Fan of Disney podcast for a near-record fourth trip to the guest host chair. They're discussing Cody's new book, Being a Fan of Disney, the book, plus the usual sharing of stories and laughs. So take some of the leftover pumpkin pie out of the fridge and enjoy. Now, please welcome your host. Hey Stan, speaking of pumpkins, did you ever wonder why Cinderella is so bad at soccer? It's because her coach is a pumpkin. Oh well, back to the mines. Hi-ho! Here's Stan Solo!
Hello and welcome to another edition of The Solo Show. I am Stan Solo as always, and joining me today for the fourth time on The Solo Show, he's getting close to the 5 gold jacket, the 5Z Club. Cody Havard. Did I get it right?
Havard. That's okay. Yeah.
Cody Havard.
That's all right.
Havard. I don't know. From being a fan of the Disney podcast, classroom, and now book. Let's find out about this book. But first, Cody, I know you've been on here. This is your fourth time. I guess, I don't know, is it the third or fourth? Because the first one was a 2-parter.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how you count it. Because, this will be the fourth show, but then one of it's, I guess, 3 recordings. You and I are kind of the same. You've been on Being a Fan of Disney, the podcast, 3 or 4 times. Yeah. So you're getting close to the 5-time Baffin Club.
Exactly. Exactly. So I know you explained this to me multiple times, and I just cannot wrap my head around it. You teach a class about being a fan of Disney, and you get school credit for this?
Yes.
Okay, explain it to me again. This time let me understand it.
At the University of Memphis, I'm a professor in the Kimmons Wilson School, and I teach sport and entertainment marketing. And I write about group behavior and focus in on sport and entertainment a lot of times and other social settings. But our honors college has 1-hour credits that they're called honors forums, that every honor student at the university is required to take one of these classes while they're at the university.
Okay.
And so since spring 2018, I've been teaching a class called Being a Fan of Disney. And it basically, these honors forums allow people to see instructors in a different light, talk about something that the instructor finds interesting or important. And then it allows them to also meet other people that are not in their majors and kind of act as an hour a week that they can kind of unplug, and they're not having to focus in on some of their general education classes or their major or minor classes. It's supposed to be a fun class where we talk about what fandom means, but we use Disney as the way to talk about that fandom.
Does anybody fail this class, or is it have a really good success rate?
If people do what they're supposed to do as far as turning in work, there's weekly discussion posts, turn in 2 case studies, and then attend class. Yeah, it's a very good success rate.
I picture the final exam being, are you a fan of Disney? And there's 2 questions. And there's yes, no, or maybe. And the correct answer is yes. And if you get that, you pass. That's how the final exam works.
The really cool thing about the class is when we finish, I say it at the beginning of the class, but I'm sure a lot of students, they need reminding by the end. The really cool thing about it is we wrap up the class saying, if people typically become more fans or they kind of dive deeper into their fandom during the class, but there still are people who they don't really have a lot of interest in Disney. This was sometimes the class that they wanted to take because it sounded the most interesting to them. So what we close the class with is saying, look, if you are a fan of Disney, that's great. And if it doesn't hurt you, if it doesn't hurt someone else, dive into that fandom. And because that makes you a more happy person, better relationships with others, a better, more productive member of society, that type of thing. But if you're not a fan of Disney, if you're a fan of something else, and as long as that doesn't hurt you or hurt someone else, then, it's good to show that fandom because of all the positive things that can come from that. So we try to close on that note that, if something makes you happy, and it's not detrimental to someone else or to yourself, then it's a good thing to show that because there's a lot of positive benefits.
It's hard not to be a Disney fan these days, because if you're a fan of Marvel, or if you're a fan of Pixar, or if you're a fan of Miramax old movies, or there's a lot. Disney has a huge umbrella.
Yeah.
And I got a feeling a lot of people enter your class not even realizing that, probably.
That exactly. I actually, at the beginning of the semester, maybe the second or third week, we kind of go through the different properties that Disney owns.
ESPN.
And I will challenge students. I'll say, okay, our class meets usually like 11:30 to 12:20 p.m. Central Time. And I'll say for the rest of the day, go the rest of the day without consuming anything Disney related and tell me how long it lasts. Yeah. And some people, they don't even want to try it because they are huge fans of Disney. But the other people who do try it, they end up having to say, hey, it lasted 30 minutes or it lasted an hour or 2 hours, because it is. I mean, if you go home and you watch ESPN, well, you're doing it right there. If you're talking to someone about the next Marvel movie coming out, like it's all around us.
I'm picturing the Seinfeld episode when they had the bet, when they see how long they could go. I think it was Kramer comes in like 20 seconds later and slaps down his $100. I'm out. Alrighty.
I did have one student who said they thought they made it because they went home and played video games the whole day. But then we realized that there were actually advertisements in that video game that were Disney owned properties that had been placed, product placement in the video game.
That in video games now?
I was like, well, yeah, I guess product placement is everywhere. I mean, it's very, very creative the way that they can infiltrate our lives.
Because I remember playing Pac-Man and seeing an ad for cherries and an ad for lemons.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So you got the podcast, you got the classroom, and now all of a sudden you decide, I'm going to write a book about being a fan of Disney. How did this came to be? What was your inspiration?
Well, I mean, first I wanted to be back on the show for the 4th time, so that was kind of the reason to do it. But beyond that, this has been something I have been thinking about for a few years, and I honestly kept putting it off because I wanted to be able to go and meet with people and speak with people. And, there are a few things that I mentioned in the book about wanting to meet with people, having lunch with people, or ride certain rides, certain attractions with certain people. But that wasn't feasible. I mean, obviously we had a pretty big world pandemic hit us that limited travel. Since then, you just kind of get into different routines of different things. So I've been back to Walt Disney World. The last time I went to Walt Disney World was November 2021. We went to Disneyland this past summer. And so it eventually got to the point where I said, look, I don't want to wait any longer because I do have this class. I think it's a fun class. I think it's pretty unique for a lot of people. And so I'm just going to go ahead and write the book. And if I get to meet with people later, if I get to do the things that I want to do, maybe there'll be another book down the road.
Okay.
But let's get the first one going, and let's go from there and see where it is. And so, like I said, it was something I've wanted to do for a long time, and finally just said, you know what, I think I have the content to cover now. There's 15 chapters in the book. They're all hopefully reasonably short. I look at I'm recording the audio book, and I look at some of the chapters, how long it takes me to read them. And I'm like, well, this chapter maybe isn't as short as I thought it was. But so it was kind of just the time to, hey, let's do it and let's put it out there and see what people think. And then moving forward, we can do other things with it and go from there.
So how long, when was that you kind of eventually put, to coin the phrase, pen to paper? Is that like a year ago, 2 years ago? Like how long were you actually physically working on this book?
So the first chapter I wrote was actually, Chapter 6, Lunch with the Dreamfinder.
Okay.
And that came from a lunch meeting I had with Ron Schneider in 2018. He played the original Dreamfinder walk-around character. Dreamfinder and Figment are really, really big parts of my life for what they represent, seeking imagination and professional, personal lives. And so in 2018, I attended a conference in Orlando and reached out to Ron. And we had lunch in Disney Springs. We had lunch at the Chicken Guy, which is an amazing restaurant. And
wait, the Chicken Guy, isn't that the one from, what was that show? Breaking Bad?
No.
I'm sure
it's Guy Fieri's restaurant.
Guy Fieri's? Okay, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I went off track there.
No worries. It's in I think the bottom of like the building where Planet Hollywood is. Okay. Which now is like the Planet
you're
Hollywood
talking
Observatory
in
or
Disney
something.
Springs you went. Okay,
yeah.
In
Disney Springs.
Memphis. Okay, right.
No, we had lunch there. And so after I got back, a few months after I got back, I think is the first time I actually wrote that chapter. Mm-hmm. And there were a few other things, like there's a chapter, I actually just released a recording of it today on Being a Fan of Disney, the podcast, about a house that's decorated like the Haunted Mansion each Halloween. Mm-hmm. And so, that one I probably wrote in 2021. And so there were these collections of shorter stories of meeting people and seeing different things that I had done. And I probably had 5 or 6 of those done. And then over the summer when I decided, look, let's just put the rest of it down, is when I added the rest of it. So it's been in the works for a while. Most of the work has been done over the last 3 or 4 months, I would say.
So you had all these cocktail napkins all over the place that you had to find and collect, basically.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
And I do mention in the book a few times, I hope my memory serves me well because it's a good one. So getting to that comment, there were napkins everywhere, but there were also ideas floating around in my head that I had to try to remember the details of.
Right. So you mentioned Dreamfinders in the book. I saw myself in the book. I read the book. It's very, very
mm-hmm.
interesting. I saw Grand Circle Tour in the book. But what is the book about?
The book is it's kind of a hybrid of, if we could talk about what Disney fandom means. I'm an academic by trade. I'm a professor by trade, so I write. And so part of it is based on research that I and others have done. But it's written in a way that is more consumable to the general audience. As an academic, when you write, there are, and I talk about this in the first chapter, there are certain things you have to do. They're very technical papers that you're writing. Even the books that I've written, the academic books I've written, they're very technical. They need to include certain aspects and specific things. This is the first one I wrote for a general audience, which has been really, really fun. It's also been kind of scary. But that's why chapter 1 in the book is probably so long, because I spend a good amount of time explaining how to read my writing and how to understand what I'm trying to say. So that's part of it, is what does Disney fandom mean? within that, it's also a story about, hey, let's give some examples, and I will be the person. I'll give my examples of fandom. Here are some stories I've collected along the way, some experiences I've had. Here are some great people I've met along the way, like yourself, like Grand Circle Tour podcast, like Lou Mangello, John Sakari, all of the people I've met that have been on the spoken in the class and on the show. And here are kind of this collective of a lot of people who are fans of Disney. And then, try to tie it together throughout the book saying, here's what fandom gives us. Mm-hmm. And here's what Disney means to all of these people and to myself. And so a lot of the book is, it may in a way seem like, in a way it's kind of a self ethnography or a story of my fandom from my perspective, but I try to throw in a bunch of other people as well. And even, when I talk about the podcasters in the book, I even mention, I want to name drop a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I get to kind of brag on all the cool people that I've been able to meet because of this opportunity.
Yeah. Not to mention Ken, the voiceover guy.
Yes.
If you want to know a little bit of his story. He's
on the show.
In the book as well.
And Ken actually offered to do the audiobook for me. I said I wanted to do the audiobook because I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I love when the author reads the book, because you can tell, that's their words, for better or worse, their speaking ability, for better or worse, but that's their story. And I think it's pretty neat to do that. And a lot of that comes from listening to Ron Schneider's book.
Okay.
About his time in themed entertainment and the way like he would be able to add inflection and personality to his words and everything. And so I imagine, as far as quality, Ken would have done an exceptional job, possibly better than the way that I read it. But, because I like to listen to people read their own books, I declined the offer. But I told him, hey, stay tuned. Maybe there'll be some more stuff that will help with.
That's cool. I actually reached out to you before we recorded, and I asked you, could you send me a little clip of the audio version? And you were gracious enough to send me a little clip. So I want to play just a little, like a 30-second clip of you reading a segment of the book. Speaking of Ron Schneider, for people that are interested in the audiobook, give this a listen. No offense, Ken, but who needs Ken when you got Cody reading his own book?
No, thank you.
Ken can cut in his audio clip here. I thought that was beautiful. I think it's going to be very interesting to hear this as an audiobook for sure.
Thank you. I have wanted to, for some reason, I guess because I listen to so many, I've wanted to do an audiobook for a long time. And it's fun. I'm working on, I actually have all the recordings done now. Now I'm going in and editing out where you make mistakes and you have to go back and edit and all that. So the everything, the Kindle version, the paperback version, the hardback version are all live on Amazon now. The audiobook, I'm not really sure how Amazon handles that. So I'm not exactly sure when it will be done or when it will be available, but I can say it's forthcoming and it's close to being finished from my part, at least.
Nice. So that's coming soon. Now, something you have interesting in the book is the, you call them hidden BAFODs throughout the book. And I guess I'm understanding it, but I'm not quite understanding it. It's kind of like a hidden Mickey, but it's in a print form. So what is this?
Like, everybody loves, if you're a fan of Disney, you know what hidden Mickeys are. Everybody loves them. You find them in the parks. People even find them anywhere. We'll be walking around our neighborhood or in a store, and one of my sons will point out sometimes, hey, look, there's a hidden Mickey. And everybody knows what it is. It's basically the three circular objects kind of lumped together to look like the head of Mickey Mouse. So I wanted to do something fun like that to make the book interactive, because there's a website that goes along with the book called sharedperspectives.org that it includes information about the book and about the class. It also includes information about my writing outside of Disney in group behavior and fan behavior. And I get into a little bit of that in the book based on how Disney can impact fan behavior. But for these I call them hidden BAFIDs, and they're BAFIDs because it's being a fan of Disney. And so the first iteration I had was literally typing out the word BAFOD in different font or different size. Some of them superscript, some of them subscript. And then I finally realized how to add a logo to the document that I was writing. So in the printed version or in the Kindle version, now there actually are logos so that it makes a little bit more sense. It's hopefully not as disruptive to the reader. But all of the versions that I sent out for people to read and to give me feedback, they didn't have the logos in them. So hopefully the logo now is a little more pleasing to the eye.
Yeah, I know, because you sent me like a rough draft of it and I was reading it, and it was, and I'm reading it and you're talking about on my second trip to Walt Disney World, I was there with my sister, BAFAD. I'm like, what am I reading? BAFID. I'm like, what is going on here? This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and
so I'm glad you got the logo. That's cool.
Yeah.
So you meant
one thing.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. One thing I try to do with those is if you go to the
That's
website,
what I'm going to bring up next.
then there's a place that you can put in all of the page numbers, or if you're listening to the audiobook, even a timestamp. If you're driving in a car, wait until you stopped driving in the car. Don't try to get the timestamp in while you're driving. It's an approximation, but you can put all of that in to the website, and then you can actually be I call it a certified BAFID investigator. So you can download like a decal and post that on social media or, wherever you want to do that. So that's the intent of things like hidden BAFIDs. And I'm trying to find other things to do that might be kind of fun, and make the book somewhat interactive, to kind of resemble what a class would be if you were taking Being a Fan of Disney, the class with me. These are the kinds of things that we do in the class.
Yeah. So I went to the sharedperspectives.org this morning, and you have like a trivia segment in there, and it's a fun trivia, multiple choice. And the idea is after you read the book, it's kind of to see how much you retained. I mean, I guess you can go back and look in the book yourself, but there's trivia questions of stuff that was in the book, and you could fill them out, like you answer them, and then you get graded on them. So there's different chapters, each have different trivia questions. Am I right so far?
Yeah.
So turns out the podcast chapter I was better at, because I got 80% on that one. Some of them I got like 50%. I got 70% on another one. So not too bad. I didn't fail any of them. Like a 50% passing mark, I'm guessing.
I actually I got an email this morning that you had taken one of the quizzes.
I took like 4 of them.
And so I went in and looked. I think there's kind of a lag time from, I can't remember which kind of widget or whatever I use for the quizzes, but I got an email, and when I was looking through and I was looking at your answers, I actually noticed a typo on my part. So I'm like, oh, I need to get in and change that. So yeah, I can see when people answer, I guess.
Yeah, because after you complete you give your email and your name, and then that you get sent to it. Hopefully you get flooded with emails from people filling these out that you get, all right, enough with the emails already. I got to change this website.
No, I mean, I have told the Honors College every semester. I started teaching this class one time a year, only in the spring, because I was teaching another honors class on rivalry in and out of sport, which is what I primarily write about. But I enjoyed this class so much that I told the Honors College, look, I will teach this as many times as you let me, to as many people as you will let in the class. I don't care if it's usually about 15 to 20 people in these classes because they're supposed to be smaller. But I said, I don't care if there's 100 people, and I'm teaching it every semester. I will do it. So I now have been able, since I think fall 2020, I've been able to teach this every semester to between 15 and 20 students. And at various times for 3 semesters, it was actually a 3-credit class. Then now it's back down to a 1-hour class, because just of the way the university works with listing classes and things like that. But so this is a kind of a way for me to have a larger class size, if you will, and just involve as many people in this as want to be involved, because it's it's a whole lot of fun,
Yeah.
you know?
And here's a little tip for people that are going to do the trivia questions after reading the book. One of the multiple choice answers is the solo show. It's the wrong answer. I'm a wrong answer. It turns out I'm not the right answer. So don't click the solo show when you're doing the trivia questions and you see it come up. Thanks, Cody. I always wanted to be a wrong answer in a trivia question. So the audio version's not quite out yet. You mentioned people could buy the book at Amazon. Is there anywhere? Is it available on sharedperspectives.org? Or I'm guessing you're going to have a link there as well. Amazon,
yeah, I will put a link. Amazon will be the easiest, and that's when I've been promoting it, putting it out on social media. That's what I've been sharing, because that's kind of, you go to Amazon and it gives you the option, you know, the 3 different options for the books. I will put a link on sharedperspectives.org. That will link back to Amazon. And as I said, when the audiobook comes out, my guess is that when you go to Amazon, there would be a 4th option. There would be 4 options. You know, you could do the Kindle, the paperback, hardback, or Audible option. But we'll see how that looks when that comes out. But yeah, Amazon would be the best way to find it.
I'm curious about that. Now, something I found interesting was the book officially came out on your birthday. Happy belated birthday, by the way. Was that intentional, or was that a fun coincidence?
I was going to release on October 1st for obvious reasons. And then that actually ended up being a Sunday. So I was like, well, maybe I'll release it on a Wednesday, because that's when I teach the class, and thought like, hey, that might be kind of fun to release it on a Wednesday and do something fun in the class. So I then in my mind had pushed it back to October 18th. And then just various things happened. It wasn't quite going to be ready. Actually what it was is I ordered, like proof copies of the book, and the proof copy of the hardback was not going to be in until October 20th or 21st or something. And so I wanted to make sure I had everything in line. So that's when I said, well, let me do it on the 26th, because that's kind of fun, being your birthday, and it can be the release of the book. So you can kind of have 2 things to celebrate on that day.
So it was a happy coincidence then.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. That's good. That's really good. So it worked out nice. The other thing too is, I know people are going to be asking, and they're probably interested in their classroom. Is this classroom available online at all? Like, is this something that people can, or do they have to be living in Memphis and going to, I don't know, was it the College of Memphis or the University of Memphis?
Yeah. So it's at the University of Memphis for right now for honor students at the University of Memphis. We have at various times talked about, can we make this like a continuing ed class? Because universities offer that as well. Like for, people who may need continuing education credits, is this something that they could take? Also, when I was an undergrad at the University of Texas, they had, I think they called them community classes.
Okay.
Where they were just, they were fun things that everybody in the community could take. Like one semester I took bowling, and I think it was like $300 to sign up. And basically once a week I went and bowled for a semester,
Okay.
And so right now it's not available for like a credit, if you will, for anybody outside of the university. That's why I have, on sharedperspectives.org, I kind of have that information where you could follow along. I am planning on sharedperspectives.org to allow people to, I'm trying to figure out a way to allow people to submit kind of, assignments if they want to submit the assignments. We have 2 in the class. I write about them in the book. They're fun. One is, what Disney character or attraction do you think you are? Another option is, what MCU superhero do you think you are? And then the third, or I guess the second, is how do you think Disney has impacted you, and how does it impact society as larger? And so I'm trying to figure out a way to allow people, if they want to submit anything, to submit, because they're fun to do. And then more recently, I have just learned that the university is looking to do more continuing ed things that we're being asked for ideas. So I'm trying to get a little more information on that. And if I get information that this class could fit that kind of model, then that's an option in the future as well. So, but for right now, it's on sharedperspectives.org. You also can follow the class. There's a public group on Facebook, Being a Fan of Disney, where I post about it. And then I post about new episodes on Twitter or what now is X. At my handle, it's C Havard PhD. Cause I post a lot of stuff for students there. So I have the PhD, after it. And actually Cody Havard was already used when I signed up. So I needed to add extra letters. So those are the places where people can engage with it right now.
Very cool. Very cool. So there we are. Because I know people are going to be asking about that. Hey, I want to take this course, even though I live in, Minnesota or something. They're going to, which is also U of M.
Yeah. And hopefully in the future, people will have the opportunity to do that, because like I have said, I will teach it as much as possible to everyone that wants to take it, to as many people that are in a class. So hopefully that's an option in the future.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Cody, I want to thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate you taking some time out of your busy day to chat with us. I wish you all the best of luck in your book and your podcast and everything else. We'll have to have you on again on the solo show. Any final thoughts or comments you want to put out there?
Yeah, well, thanks for taking the time. Thanks for reaching out and having me on here to help promote it. One thing that, like I said, I think fandom, if it doesn't hurt the individual or other people, is a really good thing, because it makes people more happy, more successful, better relationships with others, with themselves. And one thing that I do want to mention in the book is I talk about how I've seen Disney Disney fandom can possibly be used to help people interact with each other. That, not everybody has the same thoughts about certain things or likes the same things. But when you interact with other Disney fans or other, fandoms that bring out positive vibes in people, that's a good thing. And so I think Disney is a brand that hopefully can bring people together. People can share in their fandom, whether it's the movies, television, the theme parks, whether they're talking about what new attractions are going to be, or what attractions they wish were still there. I'm listening to the top 10 moments in Disney history right now from WDW Radio. And, I know you've done things like that. I know Grand Circle Tour Podcast has done things like that. So it's really, really fun. The coolest thing to me about this book is being able to teach the class, being able to meet the people that I've met through this, and really find out that there's a huge community, and there's a great way to build friendships and to make friends simply because you are a fan of, the same brand, the Walt Disney Company, whatever part of it you may be a fan of. So hopefully it's something that people enjoy. And as I say in the book, if your fandom makes you happy and it doesn't hurt you or someone else, well, fandom on, because it's all good.
You are so correct. I think, like, in my personal life, pretty much all of my best friends and the people I communicate with and chat with are all through Disney. That's how I became friends with them, was through social media, and it's Disney social media, not just Facebook or Instagram. It's like, and Lou Mangello was a big part of it. I have to admit, he was a big part of so many of my really good friends, as well as the Grand Circle Tour podcast. My best friends are all co-hosts on the Grand Circle Tour podcasts, or they've been on the show or whatever. But yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting subject to for sure. And if you are a fan of Disney, check out the book. You head on down to Amazon, click the buy now, and and give it a good read. Alrighty. That is so awesome. Oh, by the way, I got a thank you in the book too, which is really cool to see my name in print.
Yeah. You have done a lot for not only the book. You helped read early copies of the book, but as far as I've learned a lot about podcasting from you. Anybody who's listened to Being a Fan of Disney, the podcast, knows I am not short-winded. And so some of the episodes tend to go very long because they're interesting conversations, to me at least. And so I just keep them going. I've learned a lot from you about kind of time management, about promoting things. You do an amazing job with the solo show, with Grand Circle Tour podcast. All of you do a great job with that. So it's so fun to learn from people. I've learned from you. I've learned from John. I write in the book. I've learned a lot from Lou as well, and made a lot of connections through the clubhouse. And so it's all really, really fun.
Yeah, very good. Excellent. Ken, take it away.
If you have a brilliant idea for a future edition of The Solo Show and would like to take your turn in the guest host's chair, then drop us an email at thesoloshow01@gmail.com. Tell us your idea for the show, and we'll contact you about a date and a time for you to join us. If you would just like to keep the conversation going or have a comment about a previous show, then visit us on Facebook at The Solo Show. All logos, sounds, and songs that are made by and for Disney and its affiliates are owned solely by the Disney Corporation and are not, nor are they intended to be, the ownership of The Solo Show podcast. We hope you'll join us for the next adventure on The Solo Show. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.